Well, hey, what's up, everybody? It's Adam here with Bearded Hops. Thank you so much for watching us, clicking on the video. And little technical issues with this episode. We talked with Matt from Massive Beer Reviews. Great time, great guy. But for whatever reason, the video didn't record. We got the audio, but we have no video. So this episode, it's just our logo with the audio. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to check out our Bearded Hop clips where we take bits and pieces of the show and put it out throughout the week. And then, of course, Friday morning beer review with Chad every Friday morning. And you can always find everything else Bearded Hops at beardedhops.com. And I think that's it for me. I think we'll cue the intro here, kids.
Hey, pass me a beer.
Look, at least promise me you won't drink. Alcohol always leads to trouble.
Hey, who wants to play Drink the Beer?
Right here.
You win.
All right, what do I win?
Another beer.
Just have a cup of coffee.
Beer it is.
Coffee?
Beer.
I'd kill for a beer.
Cheap beer and a sympathetic ear. Step right up.
You're on, Chad.
Oh, hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Bearded Hops Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chad, in the northern Bearded Hops studio, north side of Milwaukee.
You make it sound like we have a lot of money here. We got all these studios all over the country.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of our mini studios.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other, the studio, the south studio on the north side of Chicago is Adam and Jake. How you doing tonight, boys?
Hello.
Hi.
And tonight we've got another special guest. You may have heard of him. He's got a pretty big YouTube channel.
Who could it be, Jake?
It's pretty big. It's
Would you
huge.
call it massive?
Am I supposed to talk now? I don't know.
No.
No, you just sit there the whole time. We'll do it.
Hey, we've got Matt from Massive Beer Reviews with us tonight. How you doing, Matt?
I am pretty fantastical. Thank you very much for having me on. It is a pleasure and a burden.
I was gonna say, don't say honor because nobody's gonna believe you. Alan,
I think we'll get along just fine here.
Oh.
And Matt, where is your studio located there? Where are you approximately in this?
I'm gonna say the first place, which is actually where it's located, which is Hope, New Jersey, which nobody understands.
Okay.
Nobody knows where Hope, New Jersey is. No, right?
Not
Okay.
really, no.
Second one would be regional. It's by Hot Dog Johnny's. There's one of the most famous hot dog stands in the country. I'm about 5 minutes away from there. And for those that don't know where that is, we can go where Friday the 13th was filmed. My wife's bridal shower was in the cemetery that had the church connected to the cemetery in the opening of Friday the 13th. So,
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well,
yes, so northwest New Jersey.
we got to work on our geographical descriptions.
I know
of our
New Jersey.
studios.
That's about it. That's why we always say, "Where do you live?" Chicago. We don't live in Chicago.
Yeah.
If I say Lake Villa, nobody's like, "What's that?" So
Yeah, but we also don't have any. Do we have anything cool like that we're next to? I don't think so.
we got a lake.
Well,
You got a deep lake.
all right, we're getting off track here. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. We got quite a few questions for you. I'll be honest. I am a rather new follower of yours. Adam actually introduced me to your YouTube channel, and that's where I've been following you on. I don't know how long you've been following.
I don't know. Probably since we started the show and I started looking at people that drinking beer on YouTube.
So maybe a couple years,
Yeah,
year and a half.
around that, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably about the time I started following Massive Beer Reviews. And Matt and I are friends on Untapped. I think there's a question in here about Untapped.
You
are?
friends.
Chad,
Ooh,
you're so good at-
BFFs.
Wow.
And by the way, up here we call that one two tree instead of
tree.
you know
Yeah, tree.
two or three
Two or three
years.
tree.
Tree.
Two
Tree.
3 years.
Two tree?
To a tree.
Is that right? No. Yeah.
Jake. All right.
So-
Well, before we do anything, we need to go around and say what we're drinking, kids. So
Yeah, that's a good idea.
we'll do ladies first. So Chad, what are you drinking?
I went. I don't know where that came
All right,
from.
Chad's dead. Jake.
I
All those boat chemicals.
The boat
I went
fumes.
with a special beer tonight that actually I think came to me from Mr. Jakey. I went with Revolution's Vanilla Death.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a damn good beer.
Yeah, and I haven't had a sip.
Session beers. Fuck the world.
Yeah, right. 14.8, perfect session.
Have you had that one, Matt?
Which one is it again?
It's a Vanilla Death. It's by Revolution Brewing in Chicago.
No, I've had it. I assume it's a variant on Death Star.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've had a couple variants, but not the vanilla.
Oh, the vanilla's very, very good.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm trying to let it warm a little bit. I didn't take it out of the refrigerator quite early enough.
You're going to have to cup that.
I just realized I had
Yeah.
a 4-pack of that, not even opened.
You son of a
what?
bitch.
I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Never mind.
Where is that at?
None of your business.
I know where it's at.
No, you don't. I moved it.
I'm going to look for it after the show.
Matt, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Industrial Arts, which is out of like the Hudson Valley, New York. Brewer by the name of Chief O'Neill. He's the guy who actually originally made Flower Power from Ithaca Brewing, which most people know about. It's their Spring Landscape, which is a pale honey bock, 6.7%. It was actually a mystery beer. I didn't know what it was when I opened it, so I did a review before I did this, and so it was pretty fun.
Honey box sounds good. Does it?
Nice.
You taste the honey?
Well, yes and no. Because honey can come off in a couple different ways. The same enzyme that's in brute beers actually naturally is from honey. So you can actually have honey dry out a beer and not be sweet. So sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. This it's more of a dry thing.
Whoa, that's a really interesting fact.
Yeah.
Look, you learn stuff all the time on this show.
Well, I learn stuff from Matt's reviews all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
All downhill from here.
Yeah, right. That's the highlight, folks.
Yep.
listening
Dick and
now.
fart jokes going on.
Jake, why don't you tell the kids what you and I are drinking? Because we're sharing. Because sharing is caring.
Yeah, so this is a brewery that's, I would say, I found in the last 2 months. As far as I could tell, they're relatively small but growing. They're out of Evanston, Illinois, which is a place that I actually used to live. This is Temperance. And what I found was I was lucky enough. I was at one of our local alcohol stores that has a pretty good liquor stores that has a pretty good beer selection. And if you get there on the right day, you find the guy that does all the actual beer ordering, and he's pretty passionate about it. He's not always there, but when you can catch him, he's a good guy to talk to. So I was kind of picking his brain, asking him, if he had any hidden gems around. And this is actually, it's when I went to get the Surly Darkness. That's when I ran up there. I was looking for that. But he told me he was like, hey, I have 1 4-pack left of this Temperance Barrel Age series that they're doing. Each beer in the 4-pack is a different variant. This is what's called the Heaven Hill Barrel Age Stout. I do remember, it's kind of hard to read. The can is white with gold lettering. It's not showing up too well there. I was able to sort of make it out earlier. I know it has notes of vanilla and other things. But I liked that it was 4 different variants in the same 4-pack. Definitely hitting home for me on the 12.3 ABV. You guys know I'm a lush.
Anything under 10 doesn't count.
Yeah, and it's just a brewery I've been liking lately. They have a double dry hop IPA I really enjoyed. I was at a charity event down in Chicago, and they had a stand there, and I tried a couple other ones that I hadn't seen before. So this is actually a brewery that I'm hoping to get out to because even though there's a lot of shitty traffic, I mean, it's not that far away
The
from
list
us.
is growing.
But yeah, I brought this over to share with Adam. I share. I don't hide my beer. Cheers.
I share it, just not all of it. All right, well, there you go.
All right, boys and girls. Well, that's what
that was a
we're
very
drinking
good
tonight.
explanation.
Yeah. All right, time to start grilling Matt. Go.
All right, Matt. Well, I mean, in general, can you just tell us what was sort of your inspiration, how you got started doing your and I'm sorry, as I said, I'm somewhat of a newer fan. Would we call it a podcast? Would we call it a YouTube channel?
YouTube channel.
A
Yeah.
YouTube channel. I don't know if you also put a podcast out there.
Yeah, 2 things. Kind of separate, but the same thing. YouTube is just honestly, and my buddy Joe, he used to do YouTube stuff back in the day. God, when was it? I don't even remember. It was I don't know. It was that long ago. It was probably like 2013 or so. We just met, and I'm like a total like hermit curmudgeon guy. So I started like eke out into the public and drink beer and shit, and bumped into him. And after hanging out a couple times, he was like, I do beer reviews on YouTube, and I was like, that's a thing. And then maybe immediately like 10 minutes later, I'm like, this fucking guy does YouTube. I'm fucking doing YouTube like a fucking asshole. And
wait, this was after drinking. You had that epiphany.
Yes, totally. And then I was like, I just started doing it because at that time, like I was into beer, but I was very in my little like circle of like 4 or 5 friends that were really into beer. So I just started doing it just for funskies, and just kind of went from there. So that was like 2014. I started doing it.
And what was sort of your path? How did you come to become a sort of craft beer entrepreneur? Did you start out, did you take sort of that traditional, I don't know, big beer, domestic beer college and just started branching out after that, or did you have somebody kind of introduce it to you?
No, like my parents owned a bar when I was a kid, but only till I was 16. So like, and it was a shitty bar, like not a shitty bar, it was an awesome bar, but it was all like shitty beers. So I was like, I knew what beer was because my parents chugged beers, and I had parties and when I was in high school and stuff and college. But when my job took me when I was probably around like 1998. My job took me to Canada, and I was like, and I heard they had great beer in Canada, and by great beer, I thought they had like Molson Triple X. That's what I thought was great beer. and I get up there, and this dude Phil, I was meeting up there. He lived up there. I was like, hey, I heard you have really good beer up there. Not articulating Molson Triple X. I'm like, show me some good beer. So he takes me to the Canadian beer store, and because it's called the beer store in Canada at the time, that was the only thing you can get beer. And he got me a case of Unibrew Maudit. Which is Unibrew Brewing from Canada. It's a Belgian dark ale, and I drank like half a case, and then I woke up like a day later, surprisingly didn't die, and I was like, this stuff's delicious, and I came back, and then lo and behold, I just knew one of my friends, my buddy Ian. He was in the beer. I just knew he was in the beer, like just kind of, on the edges. I wasn't in the beer, but I always kind of hear him kind of talk about beer randomly. And I went to him. I was like, hey, man, I had this really great beer in Canada. Do you guys have it? And he's like, yeah. He's like, come down to my bar. And, I'm like 21 and a half, 22 years old at the time. He's like, come down. And he's like, we have it down there. And I was like, okay. I went down there, and I went there for like 2 weeks straight, just drinking Unibrew Maudit. And after 2 weeks, he's like, there's more beer than that. And I was like, yeah, dude. And he ended up, he's like the smartest person I know when it comes to beer, and it still is. And I got super lucky, man. Like I was like 21. This is, like I said, right around the end of the 90s. And he was like, I'll make you a deal. He's like, come in here and I'll hook you up. Like, you won't pay full price for beers. The only stipulation is you can't drink what you want. I just give you whatever I want, but in exchange for that, I will tell you everything about the beer. I'll tell you who made it, how it's made, all that stuff. And I just kind of piqued my interest in nerdery side of things. So that was my hard and fast path down to getting into beer.
Now that's a connection I need.
That's a good friend.
Yeah. Still friends to this day. He's awesome dude. He runs a beer program down in North Carolina. He just moved from Florida. He was down there doing stuff. But yeah,
I'd keep that friend around.
Yeah.
That's
a way better friend than you guys.
Definitely.
Jeez. So how much, I wasn't really anticipating this question, but your sort of love affair with good beer goes back much longer than mine. How much have your options grown and changed in your time that you've been a fan of seeking out, the delicious ales out there?
It's crazy, dude. Like, honestly, it's like a weird world. Like, I kind of feel like I remember in Shawshank when like who's the dude who who killed himself when he got out of Shawshank?
Oh, like Ford or something. He was working at the grocery store.
Yeah, the old dude. Like,
yeah.
When the jail cars didn't exist, and he came out, and he was like overwhelmed by everything.
Yeah,
it's kind of like
Old Wayne grew up in a big damn hurry.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it was. Like, I got into beer then, and then I had a couple close friends that were into beer, and that was it. And you talk about like the late 90s and going through the 2000s up until the double digits of the teens of the 2000s. If I met one person the whole year that was in the beer, I was blown away. I was like, what? I was like, you're in a fucking beer? That's fucking crazy. You know what I mean? So, and me being like a curmudgeon, I would never meet anybody, so that would never happen. But so it's like a weird world to live in. So most of my beer knowledge came from going online or reading or meeting up with like the people who used to tour back in the day about beer, like Michael Jackson and shit, and dealing with all that kind of stuff, and just living in that world, which is mostly Belgian ales. You know what I mean? Old barley wine, English barley wine, Belgian ales, stuff like that. And that's my true love. And then right around like the 2000, I got divorced. I was married, and I left my wife right around like 2010. And then after about 6 months, going, oh man, I shouldn't just be like a fat dude in his apartment drinking beer. So I started to go out and hanging out with people, and then from there, that was around the time when beer started to explode. Hops started to be cultivated differently. They started to make more new and interesting beers. So it kind of like my emergence outside of that little kind of cocoon of beer came at the same time when beer started to explode. So there was a good like 10 to 15 year mark where I was like, Quasimodo, but I still am, but just more electric.
A very interesting way to put it. Very Quasimodo, but more electric.
Yeah.
You've got, I mean, I was just looking at you've got 2 subscribers out of me because I signed into another YouTube account and I just subscribed to you again.
Double dipping, baby. Yeah.
You've got 6,400 subscribers.
Yeah.
Which for a beer channel is quite a bit from what I've seen.
And 2,000 plus beer reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of beer.
Yeah, that's a thing.
And you're like, okay, whatever. That's
no. I mean, like it was weird. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I kind of was leading into, and you probably can answer whatever you're going to say would be the answer to this question is the name of your channel, Massive Beer Reviews. Did you name this channel Massive Beer Reviews up front, knowing that you're going to be doing a beer review a day?
No. The name came from I used to belong to this forum. So I used to be like a weird electronic music artist back in the day, and I used to play up and down the East Coast. And the forum that we kind of all kind of talked about, like, we're talking about like the late 90s. So this is like GeoCity shit. You know what I mean? And we would like talk about like, all our music and stuff like that was called Huge Massive, MASSIF. And I was like, okay, let me just, instead of doing Huge Massive, I'll do a Beer Massive. But I'm like, yeah, no one's going to get massive because it means mountain in French. Okay. So I was like, well, let me do Massive Beers instead. You know what I mean? It's just so it's a little bit more on. Dude, I had the worst fucking names. I thought about all the names and I was like, I'll name it this. And I was like, that's the dumbest shit ever. So I was just like, fuck it. I was like, just do Beer Massive, or Massive Beers, and just do it from there. So I was like, and I had no idea how much I was going to do. I recorded like a 2 or 3 beer reviews in January 2014, and uploaded like 1 or 2, and then didn't upload anything until June because all I did was do beer reviews until June because I'm like, I don't want to not have beer reviews to put up. So I'm like, I want to have a backlog. So I was like, I'll do that, and then quickly figured that I'll always have a backlog. So that was dumb. So yeah.
How long?
Go ahead, Chad. It's you, sir.
Well, you mentioned backlog. How far in advance do you record versus when it comes out? Like what? I mean, you said you did a review on this spring landscape that you did today.
Yeah.
Is that just in the can and it'll just go out when you need it to go out?
It depends. It honestly depends. Typically, when I review stuff, I typically do 2 to 3 beer reviews every time I sit down. And I usually sit down 2 to 3 days a week and do beer reviews. So that will give me easy 7 days a week. You know what I mean? So let's say I do let's say I do 4 beer reviews. If I sit down 2 days and I do 4 beer reviews, I'm golden. So then I have the weeks full. That's fine. Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, except for days like today on something special. Thursday, Friday, Saturday are typically the only days I'll drink beer. And but stuff like this is a mystery beer. Like I do a series on my YouTube where people send me beers that are wrapped up.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they are. This is one of those. Spoiler alert. And so I try to do those in chronological order. So all those go up. Like this will most likely go up whatever queue that is in. So let's say I have 8 of these. I only put up 2. I put up 2 every Monday. So it'll be 4 weeks before this goes up. Whereas other beers, for example, I went to a brewery this weekend and I did a couple beers and I was like, okay, I put that up 3 days later just because it's more topical because people might be interested in picking that beer up. So I shuffle the queue around. It doesn't just go by a chronological order.
Gotcha. Matt, I was actually watching today when I got home from work. The wife and I were watching a video that you put up where somebody had sent you some beer and like half the beer you just showed us right away what it was and the other half the beer was wrapped up. because it was mystery beer that they had sent you. Does anybody ever try to slip you some like shitty beer as a joke?
Oh fuck yeah, dude! Like,
Ever fuck with you or send you something really weird that tastes like shit?
It makes me so excited too, and like I love it. Like there's a couple breweries that like me in Jersey, like more people follow me locally because I cover a lot of regional beers, so I get more people to cover me, even though I have people all over the place that follow me. So there's a brewery everybody hates around here. The owner is like a super douche. So like I got one of his beers is a mystery beer because they want me to say it's like, you know, shit, but it was actually a good beer. And then but then like some dude from Florida sent me PBR, you know what I mean? And a mystery beer, and I'm totally cool with that. Like I love when people try to fuck with me.
It's awesome.
PBR, love the PBR.
Let me before we get going to the next question here, you said shitty beers and local shitty beers. I don't know if it's local enough, but
he's gonna ask, you asked this last week, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Right.
Yeah.
National Bohemian, Natty Bo. Are you familiar with that out of Baltimore?
I absolutely know what you're talking about, but here's the thing: I've never had it before. I shouldn't say I never had it before. I've only had it before when I was probably like rip shit drunk. So I can.
Okay, all right.
This isn't so bad.
This is really good.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be interested.
Feel my toes.
I'd be interested to see what your opinion is on that beer then.
But here, it's the
Natty
thing.
Bo.
But it's the thing too. Do you know what I mean? Like there's 8 billion people that do stuff on the YouTube and talk about beer and shit like that. I don't rate beers or grade beers as like whatever, you know, like I love Miller Genuine. I love Miller High Life. I'll drink that shit all day. Like that's a great beer, like for what it is. It's like a chugging beer. It's a beer you drink with friends. You know what I mean? It's a beer you drink at a bar when you're trying to just talk about stuff, not about beer. So that beer is a great beer, but I'm not gonna sit here and talk highbrow about it. So even like beers that when I say shitty, I use it almost in like a non-literal sense, in that it's what people can view as shitty beer. It may be a shitty beer. I don't know. I'll have to pick one up.
Do you keep that on hand? Do you have High Life or anything else sort of big beer, domestic beer that you always have in the back just in case you feel like pounding a few whatevs?
No. Just because I like I said, like almost, you know, I'm like overweight and I try not to eat as like breads and carbs and all that kind of shit as much as I can. So literally almost all my beers that I drink are either beer reviews or if I want to throw down some video game sessions or stuff like that. So sometimes I'll keep like some session stuff around like Miller High Life or something like that. But more times than not, I'm not going to lie out. It'll be something like crafty that is more sessionable, stuff like that. But for like a barbecue, like I'm going to have a barbecue next week, I'm going to have like a 30 rack of Miller High Life. That's definitely that, and Jenny Cream is going to be in my fridge. So
now let me ask you, this is something we've been asking most of the people that have been on. A lot of people have said, a lot of the beer journalists and beer prognosticators, I just used a big word, thank you very much.
I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah,
Hold on a second, guys.
Google that one, Wiki app.
All I found was boobs.
It's your phone.
Oh, right.
They're saying...
What did you say about boobs?
That's the only thing that comes up on his phone whenever he Googles anything, so it's just weird. Hey, can I ask my question now, please? Okay. NA beers. It seems everybody's saying that's the next big fad is non-alcoholic beers.
yes.
Now Jake over here, I'm going to actually cut your mic off because...
I won't say anything. Go ahead.
He freaks out anybody says anything about... I mean, to him, a 9% or lower is NA beer.
And you might want to shut my mic off too, because I would side with Jake on this.
What are your... Have you had... Are there any craft breweries around you doing NA beers right now?
There's no craft breweries around me doing NA beers. Like, not really. Now, just my craft, like NA beer in general, like I actually keep, like if I keep anything, it's NA beer. Not necessarily for something I drink, but like I'll keep a case of it somewhere in case I'm having a couple beers and then I start to feel tipsy and I don't want to get drunk anymore. And I'm like, I'll drink NA beer. Yeah. But it's not that great, but I'll drink like the ones that I think are like really good. There's even a really good NA beer is kind of like the worst fucking ever normal beer.
Right.
But and honestly, I tried to do it because I was like, my buddy Keith's a big NA guy. He's like, this dude's like a beer crazy guy. He drives hours and waits in lines. Like he's a beer super nerd, but he drinks NA beer because sometimes he just wants a beer and he doesn't want to have alcohol involved.
Like he
I
wants
mean, he
he
drinks
wants
them
the
all the time.
flavor. He wants the flavor, right? He just doesn't want the buzz.
Yeah, well, he just wants a beer, but he just doesn't want the alcohol.
Yeah.
And he gave me a mix 6 of NA beers to do like a theme week of just NA beers, and I did them all, and I was like, I'm not posting this because they all suck. Like I was like the whole shtick behind the NA beer was to try to find a
Good one.
a good. Somebody's dryer on. What's going on right now?
It just started. I started pouring down rain outside.
What is that?
This sounds like somebody pulled their cord out.
Yeah, what
No,
happened
seriously. You guys sound like you're
Jake
from a
unmuted.
distance
It's because
right
I was
now.
trying to talk.
That doesn't work for you, dumbass.
I was
Oh, okay.
angry that I was muted.
Now we got
I'm
to.
sorry.
You're not muted.
Okay.
I was joking. Everybody hears your
Yeah,
loud mouth.
we're back.
Even
We're
the
back. We're
neighbors
back.
hear your ass.
It's my
Jeez.
fault.
Longer story longer. My buddy gave me a bunch of NA beers, and I was going to do a theme week, but the whole theme of the week was to try to find the best NA beer, but none of them were the best. And I really tried to find one. So
Now, were
They
they
suck.
were
I
they
don't
craft or were they big beer NA beers?
no, they were. I would consider them craft.
Yeah.
Like they were like Bitburger and like a lot of German-based beers. They weren't like what I mean, like O'Doul's or Heineken or anything like that. There were a lot of German-based ones.
Right.
But they just didn't work, and they just don't really do it for me, man. Like probably the best. Let's put it this way: the best NA beer I probably ever had was probably Heineken's new one. That was probably the closest one, and that it's still just not that good.
I've seen it in the stores, but I've yet to pick it up. I'm interested in doing it. Go ahead, Jake.
Your friend that likes NA, does he think that the taste is on par? Does he think the flavor?
Oh
is
no,
good?
no. Sometimes he just wants what he does. Like a lot of times, like if he comes over and we have like a bottle share, or we're all hanging out, and a bunch of people are drinking. Everybody's like chugging beers at like max velocity. He'll like drink a little bit and then drink an NA beer and then drink a little. He's like a responsible person. You know what I mean? Like one of those assholes.
But see, that's where I just drink water.
Whatever.
I just don't get I don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not judging. I want people to drink what they want to drink. I actually think probably because enough people at least have said it's a trend, we're probably going to see more attempts at good tasting NA beer. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year or two we actually find something we're like, hey, this is better than the shittiest regular beer.
If you could give me like a big rich beer that has zero alcohol, I'd probably be in.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem is anytime you think of an NA beer, it's going to be something that tastes like just a run-of-the-mill Pilsner or lager or something. But
worse.
I don't think you're going to get a good NA beer that's a good, as you said, a rich, bold, nice heavy stout. It's just not going to be
working on it though, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Trying.
Somebody's going to do it.
I would say the opposite. I think it's harder to pull off a Pilsner and lager that's non-alcoholic, only because there's like Pilsners and lagers, there's nothing to hide behind. So more times than not, when you drink like a Pilsner and lager that's like something like a low ABV, kind of like an NA beer, it just tastes like you could just, how do I put it? You know how, like, and this is not like a thing against vegans, but you know how vegans are like, this cheese tastes just like real cheese, and you're like, no, motherfucker, it doesn't. You just don't know what cheese tastes like anymore. Be like, that's kind of how it is. Like, you know what really good beer tastes like, and then you have the vegan cheese, and it's cool. It's cheesy, but it's just not like real cheese. It's like that. It's like you just know, it. You know it when you taste it.
I don't know, man. I feel like in like an NA stout, we're just going to taste like chocolate water or something. It's
yeah. I mean, they'll figure it out, though, man. We
I think they will figure it out. I mean, I keep hearing
in our lifetime, maybe not. But.
Well, I keep hearing it's a trend, but I have yet to see one by a craft beer company. Now, I said last week, and I still don't know the name of it because I didn't look it back up again. But there is a brewery in Missouri that does just NA
bold
beers.
That is bold.
And the Benny's Bias has it. I need to go pick them up because I'm really curious as to what it is. But
there is a brewery in Toronto. It's like one of the bigger breweries in Toronto called Bellwoods.
AT Toronto.
Yeah, I'm going to Toronto next week.
Yeah, they're one of the like I'm looking up their Instagram just to talk about the beer. They have 50,000 followers and shit. But anyway, they make some of the biggest beers in the game, like as far as like hazy IPAs and as far as stouts go. And last week they released a 0.97% hazy pale.
0.97.
0.97, so less than 1%. I have not had it. I can't say if it's good or not, but if that brewery's pulling it off and they're putting it at the market, I'm guessing it's probably all right.
I'm looking them up right now to see if they're anywhere near my hotel. Ooh, they're
You
not
know,
far from my hotel.
I would try a 0.97 beer. I'm not at all interested in NA beer.
Would you try? So if it's 0.01 or more, you're okay.
I try it. Sure.
But if it's just 0, you're not okay.
Well, isn't every NA beer like
Jake said, I just drink water.
Or kombucha. Why don't you just chug kombucha? That shit's like 0.01.
I just don't get it.
I've never had that. It scares me.
I don't drink much just for like flavor.
Yeah, he drinks to get fucked up.
I'm either drinking coffee, alcohol, or water. You know, I stick
those
to
are
those
my
three.
That's pretty much my three.
You know, I
choices
mean,
as
maybe
well.
once in a while.
That's actually the right order. You have coffee in the morning, alcohol the rest of the day, and water at night.
Well, no, water during the day, then alcohol, then water.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Good.
Yeah. I mean, maybe every once in a while, I'll do a little tea with the wife, or
Get your pinky up.
Yeah, I'll point the pink,
Yeah.
but.
The pink.
Point the pink. I mean,
Wait a second. Hang on.
That comes after.
Not that kind of show.
Like, if I'm not
You
getting
gotta
the
double
ABV,
point the
why
pink.
am I taking the calories? I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
That actually isn't too far from my hotel in Toronto, so maybe I'll try and hit that up next week.
If I was in Toronto, number one brewery, I could only go to one brewery. It would be Bellwoods.
I will try to do that.
Well, now you got a mission.
Now I got a mission.
Yeah,
You
Adam
accept
goes to
the mission?
Toronto. What, three times a year, four times a year?
Hopefully this will be the last time, but yeah, it's been twice.
Before.
Yeah.
The Ontario craft beer scene is just as awesome as basically the United States craft beer scene, just in Ontario though. It's like
That's what I
crazy.
heard,
They go
yeah.
ape shit about beer up there.
They have the one brewery in Toronto that, what is it, just lagers? Is that what I said, Chad? I don't
Just
remember.
Pilsners.
Just Pilsners.
Oh, you're talking about Steam Whistle?
Yeah.
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 Because when I went there last time and I just kind of like was looking for craft breweries around, and I saw Steam Whistle came up everywhere. And I started looking a little more, and I'm like, wait, they just do one beer? Hold on a second. So
Yeah, I remember. I don't know who it was doing a fist pump when I was talking about Belgian ales, but there's a brewery in Toronto called Godspeed, in Toronto. They're not super old, but it's you guys have probably had their beers. It's Dieu de Ciel. It's one of the ex-partners brewers from Dieu de Ciel opened a brewery there, and it's like some of the best Belgian beers you ever had. I have, and it's in downtown Toronto proper.
Adam, you got to bring some of that back to your wifey.
I thought you were going to say
And that's me.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait, which one? Which one are you?
Well, I know how much she likes Matilda from Goose Island, so it's
Yeah. You see, we got the pyramid going on today.
Speaking of
What
Goose,
is it?
Matt, since you've been a fan much longer than me,
Oh,
speaking of
look at that.
Goose, did you ever have? Were you ever a patron of any of the Goose Island products before ownership changed?
No. Because they didn't get distro out this way, so we never saw their beers out this way. Now I've had pre-AB versions of their beers, like some of the Sour Sisters and Bourbon County before ADD took them over. I've actually, like about 5 years ago, me and my friends did like a Bourbon County vertical from like the first one to like 2013 or whatever.
Damn.
Like 7 to 13, I think it was, or something like that, or whatever it was.
Did you get those? Who was saving those?
Just like it was just a random kind of come together of a bunch of us. Basically, like there was about 8 of us, and I had one, and then another dude had 2, and then basically we figured out that if we put all of ours together, we had every one but 2 of them, so we just went out and tracked down the 2 we didn't have, and we all met up. You know what I mean? Just to kind of do it for funskies.
That sounds like fun. Were the older ones any better? Did the aging?
No, not that good. Man.
No?
I mean, like seriously, they're fun. No, they're awesome experiences.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but as far as just like holding up, well, they definitely were past peak, a bunch of them. You know, but that's aging beer. That's kind of par for the course with aging beer.
Well, I have been looking into. I haven't purchased it yet, but we were recommended by another friend of the show to do our own sort of, what would you call it, wax seal?
Oh, yeah, my wax arrived today.
Oh, did it?
I'm going to try it on my legs first, but yeah.
Nice.
No, it can work as long as it's not Kyle from No Hype. Then you're good.
Ah, crap. That's who it was.
Oh, we're
That's what I
fucked.
said. Never mind.
No, wax seals are cool. Oddly enough, electrical tape works really good too.
Really?
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
wax looks so much more fun than electrical tape.
It looks ballin', man. Like straight.
But I have electrical tape right now.
You
I
put some
have no
glitter
wax.
in that, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
You gonna glitterify your Shazam it? Or?
I might. You never know.
What you switch beers, Matt? What's your new choice there?
This is a Chicago brewery,
What's he got?
Yeah.
Saint Errant Brewery. I never had their beer. I never had a from these guys before. You guys ever have anything from them?
No.
Yeah, they are from. Let's see. It's Kyler Ave, Chicago, Illinois. And it's a 7.5% double dry hopped IPA. So somebody sent me a box of Chicago beers 2 days ago, and this is in there. So super cool label.
Yeah, that's
Very
cool.
cool.
That is cool.
You like it?
Yeah, I like it. It's super dry though. Like there's like ton of, I don't know if it's a yeast thing or whatever, but it's very dry. But that works. It's 7.5%, so it's not super sweet then.
Almost like it's double dry.
Yeah. Oh, like Bud Dry kind of. Yeah.
Man,
We switched.
we did switch.
We switched to Central Waters out of Wisconsin. We actually will be going there.
Yeah,
we're
Amherst.
doing an interview there, but it's a Brute Pilsner.
Mm-hmm.
Or Brute Pils, yeah. Brute Pilsner. So
What's the ABV in it?
I couldn't find it.
5.5.
That's interesting. Usually they try to keep brute beers like
Where did you
above
see
like a
5.5?
6.5.
Yeah, I just drank one the other day. I remember looking at it. It was 5.5.
You
I
know?
love Central Waters. They're one of my favorite breweries.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
we're actually
fantastic.
going up there. We have an interview with the two owners next month.
June 4th or 5th. something
Yeah,
like
right.
that?
That's one of.
First weekend in June.
Yeah, we're doing Lakefront Brewery is going to be our first interview in person. We usually do them like this over
Yeah.
Hangouts. So Lakefront will be our first in person, and then Central's going to be our next. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, see, when I used to do, I used to have a radio show actually, and then I started doing my podcast, and the radio show was all like interview stuff. And then when I started doing the podcast, I just made it strictly only in person. That's the only time I'll do it. I won't do it actually like over the phone or anything like that, just because I like to sit in front across from somebody and talk to them.
Yeah, I'd love to do it that way. But we never get
It's
to
so
interview
hard.
somebody like you. That's
Yeah, yeah.
we wouldn't.
Yeah, totally.
There's so many people we wouldn't be able to interview, but yeah, we're trying now to do more face to face stuff, which will be fun. And
Yeah, it's
I'm
going to
gonna
be
do a few
mostly
brew
breweries, I
tours,
think.
too.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's exceptions to the rule. Like a year or so ago, I did the guys from Hop Butcher for the World. I did like them. We did like a phone interview from them. Those are Chicago guys out that way, and obviously exceptions. But it's fun to sit down and just chug beers face to face. But logistically, it's horrible. I hate it. You know what I mean? I just you have to drive and go places and stuff. But
Yeah, you gotta leave your house. You know, that sucks.
yeah.
And I get it.
So,
Dude, I just do the genie thing and I just teleport. It's pretty
Teleport.
awesome.
I wish. Save on the driving.
That would be amazing.
Matt, how long have you been sniffing your beers with the
Cup over the.
yeah, I mean that form is just. I thought I was
Are
doing
you
a good
admiring his
job.
form?
I am
Yeah,
admiring
I'm
his
like-
form.
Should I put one of his videos in
I'm-
here? And we could illustrate it
listen,
for him and just
A big part of
Oh,
my
Jake.
initial reviews is the sniff. So when I started watching, I was like, "Damn, this guy knows how to sniff."
No.
I was
Don't
jealous.
admire it, man.
No,
Ignore it.
I'm a fan.
I'm like the Jim Furyk of beer sniffing, man. Don't follow my form.
No,
You know what I mean? Like,
I
I'll
usually
fuck
got
you
like
up.
the bottle
I'll
in my
fuck you up.
nose, so I'm watching
That-
you, and I'm
that
just
was
like,
a great reference.
It was a
Yeah,
good
it's all fucked up. Like that shit's crazy.
I
it's
love
just,
it.
And Furyk
you
of
know-
sniffs.
Yeah. It's like you're not supposed to do that. Like the first rule they tell you is don't use your hand because you could have like sweat or perfume on your hand or any of that stuff. You know what I mean? But when I got into beer, those rules didn't exist, and it just became something I did. So, people give me shit for it, but it is what it is, and it's a combination of
fuck
like
them. I like it.
yeah. I don't give a fuck anyway. But like, I also like. I
think that's what I subscribed. I couldn't click it fast enough. I was like, "Oh yeah, I like this guy."
and like I've been fucking with different microphones, and the best microphone I could find because I couldn't find a sweet spot in my new place is I take like a lavalier microphone and I attach it to my glasses right here, so you can't see it. It's not on my chest or anything like that.
Ah.
And but when I sniff it, it sounds like a fucking cyclone. You know what I mean? So it's like whatever.
Have you seen Draft Therapy on YouTube?
I've never seen them. No.
He that's where Jake got his sniffing technique from. He pretty much takes the bottle and shoves it straight up a nostril.
Works well with the bottle. It's harder
first
with
I
a
was
can.
boofing beers at first. I was boofing.
Whoa,
them,
you
but
were
then-
Kavanaughing it?
Yeah. Straight up.
Boofing, is that what's boofing?
That's
Is
where
that
you
like
fart
a
into the beer?
Back
I
to the
think.
Future reference?
Oh, if you don't know what it is, you can't afford it. But I mean, like, I switched to the Keurig. So
Well,
Dude, you're hilarious.
I like it. It definitely got me hooked. The other thing that got me hooked that I just love is, your quote unquote studio itself. Where did this massive, beautiful beer wall come from?
Massive.
You need to tell us about
the
the setup here.
Massive. This is awesome.
It is.
I if you watch my first reviews, I like the first place I lived in. It had like a mantle for a fireplace. It
Yeah,
was
the
just a place
fireplace
I rent-
mantle. Yeah, I remember that.
The what?
Yeah, I remember that mantle. I remember that fireplace mantle behind the old one.
Yeah, and I put stuff on there, and then I was like, wait, I just put bottles up there because I was like, I need a backdrop. And then I was like, you know what? Let me put some more beer bottles up. How do I put them up? So I bought these like fucking $10 shelves from Walmart. And then I moved, and I was like, yeah, I guess I'll keep the $10 shelves from Walmart. And then the bottles are just like bottles over the years that I like. More times than not, it's a combination of beers that I really enjoy and artwork that I really enjoy because I really like can art and shit like that. So it's just a combination of the two.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Like, how does a new beer that catches your eye that you just sniff the fuck out of? How does that go and replace and earn itself a spot?
Oh, it's got to be awesome, man. Both. No, it's something super cool. Do you know what I mean? Like some beers.
But somebody's got to come down then, right?
This is some come down, some don't. Like, see this one up here?
Uh-huh.
How it's not facing the right way. Someone on my channel hates it when my bottles aren't straight, so I constantly make sure one bottle's all fucked up.
That's
so
awesome.
it's like there's rhyme or reason to it, Like I have like little trinkets and shit. I got like a Ruxin from the league right here doing his like fucking rig thing. And then there's a rhyme or reason to it, but a lot of it's older stuff that I dug back in the day. But yeah.
It's interesting to see what you have behind you. You got a lot of brewery stuff down on behind your left shoulder there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember earlier you had just like some of the more common beers that people would gravitate towards. I remember seeing CBS bottles and 120-minute IPAs and
they're still up there somewhere.
I think I saw
maybe you can't see all the stuff behind me because my body blocks it.
Yeah, well, yeah,
anyway,
you've moved those away from center to concentrate more on looks like interesting bottles, interesting artwork, and like even interesting bottle shapes, like on the top shelf right above your head there, like that. What? Go to your right there. Go back.
Yeah. This.
Nope. Top shelf. It's like right there.
Oh, this beer's awesome. This is just a great beer. Actually, these are all. This is like my favorite beers in the history of mankind. This is North Coast Old Stock.
Okay.
This is J.W. Lee's Harvest Ale, and this is the best beer in the history of mankind, Thomas Hardy Ale. There's only 3. Like these are all different breweries and bottles. These are just 3 beers, and these are my 3 favorite beers of all beers.
Cool. Awesome.
So it's like Thomas Hardy Ale is the best beer ever made and never known to man. And then J.W. Lee's Harvest Ale, and all these are vintage. Like this is 97, this is 1998, this is 2001. A bunch of these are from the 90s and 80s. And then like these are beers that I've collected over the years and like cellared and stuff like that I find really fucking awesome.
Well, that one bottle looks really cool.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Like if someone said like not necessarily Desert Island beer, but like Death Row beer, because Desert Island beer I'd probably pick something more drinkable than a 15% barley wine. But
it's hot out there.
Yeah, it's hot out there. But it's yeah.
We need to get our bottle.
Well, it is a fantastic backdrop to have your show on. So kudos.
Yeah, my wife hates it, but it's all good.
Yeah.
So
where? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Chad.
Well, since you said your wife hates it, where in your house is your YouTube channel studio?
That's the living room right there.
First,
That's the
yeah,
living
yeah.
room.
This is our bedroom.
Yeah.
Right there. No,
Hey, honey.
She's right there in front
She's giving
of you
the
going,
stink eye right now.
yeah. No, actually, she doesn't hate it. I just joke. I lived in northeastern Pennsylvania a good portion of my life, and I met my wife a bit over 3 years ago, and fall in love and stuff like that. And she owns a farm in northwest New Jersey, so I moved down here. Like I live in a farmhouse and a farm. I live in a plot of land that is like us, and then her mother, and then her brother.
Oh, cool.
So it's like we're all living like a farm, and it's like a cattle farm and stuff like that. So you can't move a farm. So I actually still work in Pennsylvania and just commute down here. So as far as this goes, and like basically there's a back room. This used to be her sewing room. She, for a living, she like outside of the farm, she does like knitting and sewing and stuff like that. And this used to be her like kind of like fabric room where she used to keep all her like yarn and shit like that. So there's really not much here. I mean, it's like literally just those bottles, all the empty boxes of shit that I have to get rid of from beer meals, and then a bunch of music stuff in the corner, and that's pretty much it. You know what I mean? So there's really not much going on here.
So you
just ruined the mystery.
You scuttled her
Damn it.
sewing room and turned it into a beer review.
And now we just fell. How that hurt.
Well, yeah, I did fall.
I know.
No.
I know. I've had a couple drinks, but not that much. I'm falling down here.
Glad that was a camera. I thought it was my face
right,
hitting.
Soon.
Soon.
No, she actually like went her way to like I didn't even think about where I would put it because we have a barn and stuff. I can do it outside. I don't care. And she's like, I want you to put everything in your I want you to have this room and do your stuff just because it would be easier for me to do it. Because when you talk about like me doing so many beer reviews, the easiest thing about it is I have a setup.
Yeah.
So I sit down, I hit record.
Come in and do it. Yep.
8 minutes and I'm done. So if I'm even at a bottle share with a bunch of friends, I'm like, this is rare. Let me go do it. Bang, 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 done. And there's no effort to it.
I bequeath you this room.
Awesome.
Yep, there you go.
Queef?
Well, that was a cool little behind the scenes tour of
There you go.
the beer review.
But now all the
room.
mystery's gone. I mean, I thought it was massive beers everywhere. Now it's just all the mystery's gone.
Yeah, it's all an illusion, really. I'm
Yeah, I
sponsored
know.
by Walmart, actually. And,
No, you're sponsored by Big Beer. We all know. Come on. You're a AB show.
Yeah, I wanted the camera to pan back, and the shelf of beer behind you was like one of 1,000.
wait, massive beer is big beer? There's a connection?
There's
That's
a
like
connection.
Illuminati shit.
Conspiracy theories.
The whole rest of your room is filled with Budweiser. Yeah.
It's all Budweiser.
Yeah, you got a
over
bunch of that moon beer they're selling right now.
I got one
Limited
more
release.
question about your beers on the wall before we move on to something else.
Yep.
Right behind your head. Right in the middle. What is
there.
that?
The funky one?
This
Yeah, what is
Yes.
that?
Yes.
that's Sam Adams Utopia.
Yeah, same as
Oh,
Utopia.
it's
I was gonna
okay.
say.
But it's their 10th year edition. A 10th year. Usually it's like a copper one, but for the 10th year they did like a black one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it open? Have you had it?
Oh, that's empty. Like
That's gone.
You going?
When I let off the show talking about how my buddy Joe did beer reviews, and I'm like, I could fucking do beer reviews. How I met him was there was a local kind of beer group, and we all bought like a couple bottles of Utopias and had like a big Christmas thing, so we all chipped in. And then I'm the one who got all of them. I knew where to procure them. They're like, oh, let's give you money for your effort. I'm like, I don't want money. I just want to keep one of the bottles. So that's why I have that.
Awesome. Yeah, none of us have had Utopia, so
No.
I
haven't
mean,
had that one.
Let you know a little secret there, kids. So if you ever want Utopia, this is what you do. Because it's super expensive, and I actually have a bottle of it out in my not cooler, but beer area. About every 3 or 4 years, Canada sells it, and they sell it and it's just happened last year, so it's going to be a couple more years.
Damn.
But about every 3 or 4 years, Canada sells it, and they sell for $115 American, which is $85 Canadian.
interesting.
Yeah, and that's where I got my last bottle. I have someone from Canada buy it for me, and they just ship it to me. So you end up paying, instead of paying, its MSRP is $200. You know what I mean? So you get it for less than $100 American.
Nice.
The more you know.
Let's figure out. Let's figure out a way to procure this.
Yeah.
Oh, Canada.
I mean, that's illegal, so I would never do that. But
No.
hypothetically, that's how it would
Yeah,
work.
right.
I mean,
obviously.
we all have Canadian friends, so
Right. We do?
Or people
I mean,
that
there
know.
are ways.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, poser.
Matt, did you ever think about doing something else? Some other, adventure beer related in terms of like, have you homebrewed? Have you ever dreamed of a brewery or a craft beer store? Or did you ever have thoughts?
I never wanted to work at a brewery. It's just too much work, to be honest with you. And it's just honestly, it's like I like it. I like the concept of it, but it's just not the kind of work I want to do. So I don't think I could ever work at a brewery. Let me rephrase that, as a brewer. You know what I mean? I've homebrewed before. I've made beer before. I won't call myself a home brewer, but I've done it before. I don't like the brewing process. Intriguing. It's just not for me. I could work in like the media department or like graphic design or some shit like that. You know what I mean? That I could do. I'd open a bar. I'd open like a bar, like a good beer bar. I've actually tossed it around my head. But other than that, no. I mean, in a perfect world, I'm never going to do it. Actually, I shouldn't say that. But in a perfect world, be some kind of like journalist or writer or whatever for beer. That would be cool. But I that's more of like, if it happens, it happens. I don't expect any of that kind of stuff to happen. It's more, it's fun. And once you try to make it a career, when it's not something that I don't know how to put it. If you're trying to half-ass your way into it, it's not going to make any sense. So, would it be cool? Yes. Do I expect getting there? No. Will it happen? Who knows?
Well,
I answered that question. Not really.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, we've dabbled in home brewing. We've often, discussed what we could do, but
breweries, bottle shops. Yeah, there's the ideas have flowed.
Yeah,
in
there's
a similar fashion.
There's this little German place. I actually talked about it with my wife the other day, but I don't talk about that often. There's this like little German restaurant that's like super close to us that just sucks. Like, it's so pretty inside. It's so pretty inside, and it's a really nice building, and it's got a really nice plot of land. It's just the guy who owns it he just doesn't give a shit. You can tell he just gave up in life. Like, he was a cook his whole life, and he's old, and he just doesn't want to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like basically closing. I'm like, I can fucking totally buy that place and turn it into a fucking awesome thing. But that's pipe dreamy stuff too, so who knows.
There's many places I drive by and like, that would be a great location for like a bar bottle shop place, but then I look at my bank account and go, man, that ain't happening.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, I need tires for my car. Oh wait,
Right.
that's gonna keep me from opening the place.
I gotta feed the kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
we'll
think
feed the dogs more.
I think it probably gets a little bit harder
fine.
too to be the one of the owners or principal owners the older you get, because it's like, well, shit, like this is a business where I'm going to be working a lot of late nights.
Well, yeah, and plus it's like I always like give myself like a pass by saying like the most shitty analogy ever, which is like, some people like to build the race car, some people like to drive it. I like to drive the race car,
Right.
Yeah.
I like it.
I see. I'm even worse. I just watch the race cars.
there you go.
You don't even watch it.
Isn't watching the race car an NA beer? Isn't that what that is?
No. It means I'm on my couch drunk.
I think you got you on that one.
No. We're not. No. Well, I mean, we could get political here.
Ugh.
Not really.
Well,
You
how
guys
far?
can ask me. You can ask me anything you want. I don't give a shit.
I want to know.
Well, what kind of time do you have, Matt? I mean, it's 10:30 your time, so
I'm good till like midnight.
He turns to a pumpkin at midnight, so
I would.
all right. I just wanted to mention that before we get too far into things.
I would like if you don't mind.
deep philosophical question.
What is your sort of stance on big beer versus craft beer? I mean, is that
Big beer versus craft beer?
do you take a side there? Do you get irritated when you see big beer market to both sides of their ass? I mean,
I see
sides.
the problem I have with that. like it's not necessarily you asking me the question, but the question in general is that it's not a yes or no question, and a lot of people either try to answer it as a yes or no question or try to ask it as a yes or no question. Do I hate big beer? I mean, I love an underdog and I love good people doing right. So obviously big beer kind of gets in the way of that, but at the same time, I'm also a fan of people, like, you know what I mean, having their own path and choosing what they want to do. So if you want to go out there and you want to drink fucking chug Coors Light to your fucking, you know, to your meth in the face, go right ahead. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Do whatever you want to do. But at the same time, like, big beer is a nefarious. You know what I mean? They try to do like crazy weird shit. Perfect example is like, you know, like I don't even know if big beer knows this. And then you guys would probably know this from fucking be it homebrewing and stuff, but like they did the whole campaign about like the whole, you know, corn syrup, you know,
Yes.
who's at Bud Light, no corn syrup in Bud Light, but we use rice, and then everybody else uses corn syrup.
Yeah.
Almost
Mhm.
every hazy IPA uses dextrose as a derivative of corn syrup. So
Yeah.
it's like corn syrup's in every fucking craft beer ever, but every craft beer nerd got so engulfed in this fucking corn syrup thing, and it's just like I don't care. Like I honestly don't care as long as you're not hurting puppies, kids, or my wife. I honestly don't really care what you do, but do I care? Sure, but at the same time, you know, it's America at the same time. Like, you know, if that's what they're allowed to do, that's what they're allowed to do. I don't know.
Well,
Not again a horrible answer.
I don't think it's a yes or no, and I certainly have no issue with people drinking what they like. I just like people drinking. But what I would say is I think it's a little bit, the two things that bother me is one, the lack of transparency, and people don't really know where their beer is coming from, don't really think about the fact that they're probably not supporting local business. Most people I talk to, for example.
No. I know it's.
I go to a Cubs. I was at
a rhetorical question.
I was at a Cubs game in Wrigley, and they got their craft beer section, which was supposed to be better this year. It is not. All 6 or 7 beers that they have there are all InBev beers.
Of course.
I mean, there's really,
but the people who didn't know, do you think they really care? Like the people.
Well,
who
I
know,
think they think that they're drinking
no.
craft beer. I think they're paying more. They might as well just buy, you know, Bud Light or Coors Light. Like they're paying more because they think that they're buying something different. And my argument would be, you're really not.
Right, but Matt's question is, do they care? I don't think they probably care.
I'm saying
they think they're drinking craft beer, but they don't care.
Well, maybe they're happy thinking they drink craft beer and they want me to shut the fuck up. I don't know. It's possible.
I like those people.
Now here's the thing that I think you're touching on, which is they're paying. You said they're paying more for craft beer, and that pisses you off because it's still the same company.
Yeah.
Well, there's a great. I forget the fucking dude's name, but it's the dude. It's a guy who owns. It's one of the guys who owns Creature Comforts. You might know the article, you might not. But there's a guy who owns Creature Comforts. He wrote an article about 1.5 years ago about like AB InBev because he worked on the inside of AB InBev as far as their like of how they produce their product, and it's in what you said kind of makes sense in that AB InBev isn't trying to buy, like the illusion was AB InBev is trying to buy craft beer in order to seem like they're craft beer, but what they're actually trying to do is trying to adjust the price to bring craft beer closer price wise to Bud. So it's not so much that you were like, okay, at the ballpark. The ballpark's a bad example because you're always overpaying there.
Yeah.
But you go to a draft house and you're paying, $2 for a pint of Bud, but you're paying $8 for a pint of IPA. If you can make the Bud 3, but then make that IPA profitable at 4, then the craft beer there's not a money gap in between the two beers, and that ends up helping Bud bridge the gap from being a shit beer to not a premium beer, but not that far off.
It blurs the lines even
it's
more.
like it's a super cool article. So it's like the price difference is a weird thing at ballparks, and I understand where you're coming from, that it sucks to see people drinking shit you don't want to drink. And I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but
not necessarily they don't want to, but just that I don't think they really know what they're buying. That's all. And I think that's intended.
Where do you draw the line, though? Do you draw the line at like the Brewers Association definition? Like
No,
if that's
no.
the
I
case,
just
then Dogfish Head is not
Sam?
a craft brewery. Then
Yeah.
Founders is not a craft brewery. Like where do you draw the line?
We know that. We know, yeah, well, and we've talked about that many times. I think, for me, I draw the line when you have a company that buys distribution, that buys, beer rating sites, that launches beer blog sites like October or whatever the crap that shit is, that does their dilly commercials, but then they have their secret limited edition moon landing in this 70s bar commercial. I get tired of the people that just all they're doing is trying to confuse the consumer and play both sides. Like, I respect the fact that they can produce a lot of beer consistently. I actually think regular old Budweiser, I really can't complain too much about just standard Budweiser. And the fact that, like I said, that they can produce so much of it and you can get it anywhere. I mean, that is a testament to capitalism. I don't know. But I think it destroys consumers' perception. I think it hurts people. It's kind of like that thing, like, why did they struggle a lot initially when they tried to get into craft beer? Because people wanted to identify with something. People wanted to connect with something. People wanted the beer that they drank to say something about them. They kept trying to hurry up these launches in the markets, and people weren't really buying into it. So I don't know. Then they regionally bought a bunch of smaller places and tried to be less of a presence or slow their distribution of these new breweries they were buying. And I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way over time that and then now you see, I don't know. I mean, is craft beer, is it slowing? People keep talking about, millennials or whoever it is wanting hard liquor. And I don't know. It just all goes on and on and on for me. And I just get frustrated and probably overthink it. I think what did it the most for me, though, is what happened in Goose Island. And the book that we read, Barrel Aged Stout and Selling Out.
Yeah.
I think that book just brought out so many emotions. About what changed.
You've never been the same since, really.
I really haven't.
You really haven't.
Yeah.
No, honestly, Josh's book is fantastic. So it's like one of the better books to kind of get a peek into the machine. But at the same time, it's a weird world to live in because like the super beer nerd knows all this shit, but the super beer nerd is like less than 1% of the profit margin for all those places. So the beer nerd isn't going to move the needle for any of that stuff. It's the generalized consumer. And the generalized consumer, you're asking the generalized consumer to give a shit about something they don't give a shit about. You're talking about a fringe consumer to give a shit about like a terroir-based fucking free-range artisanal beer when all they want to do is chug something that isn't Budweiser in their brain and be done with it. And what you're trying to change is somebody's fucking base ethos outside of like, to use the generic word of yuppie, that only cares about perception rather than circumstance and actual substance. It's more than just like a name on a beer. Do you know what I mean? And that's when I asked the question about like, do your friends care? It's not so much that they care about like an evil company. It's do they care really about beer? Like if they don't know that Goose Island, if they don't know Goose Island is not owned by AB InBev, do they care about beer? Like that's a simple, like who doesn't know AB InBev is owned by doesn't own Goose Island? You know what I mean?
People that don't really care about beer know that. So yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, how much effort do you put into something that would be like, okay, maybe they don't care, which is totally fine. It's okay for you to not care about that.
Well, but ignorance is bliss, I guess. And to everybody that most people I talk to, they just look at me like a beer snob. So.
Well, you could be passionate about those things and not be a snob, and a lot of people use the word beer snob just in a derogatory way.
When you're a complete asshole like him, you're a snob.
Yeah.
No, fair enough.
I guess
I understand that. I understand that too.
I think end of the day, all I'll say is like just some of the transparency of the marketing, and I also don't understand how the people that produce it can own distribution and do so much lobbying. That's all.
But isn't that business though?
It
I
is.
mean,
It absolutely
every
is. It happens
business-
in so many industries.
Every business sector you go to, they're trying to blur the lines, right?
They're trying to yes, and they're
Yeah,
trying to pay off the people that make the rules. And,
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I know. Own all
And
parts.
I don't know who said it, but in that whole garble of us kind of yelling at each other for a second,
Yeah, we sounded like CNN.
Someone actually mentioned like liquor and the whole argument. And honestly, I think if you look at it, you can see it's pretty transparent. Like beer, as a whole, is losing market share to liquor and wine hand over fist.
Right.
So you've seen big beer, you've seen Budweiser, AB InBev, Miller Coors kind of start infighting between themselves to try to get market share, as opposed to because they see their profits dwindling from hard liquor, spirits, and wine, as opposed from the craft beer market. The craft beer market's growing; it's still taking its part. Granted, it's slowing. Like the Brewers Association will tout all these numbers about breweries opening, but they actually don't go and tout all the breweries that are closing. So it's flatlining a little bit.
And that's what scares me is like, with the shift in what consumers are purchasing, and then the everything getting blurred with all the marketing and who owns what. Like, are we going to see more and more craft beer breweries close and as they get undercut?
But I think it's.
What if we get to a point 10 years from now where all of a sudden we have shit for selection again?
I think
it's not going to happen.
I don't think so either. I think it's a good thing. I think that we're at a point of where we're shearing off some of these breweries because
they weren't all good.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Because we were at a point where everybody and their moms opened a brewery, and some of these guys were just making shit beer that they made in their basement, and then they're putting it out.
Yeah,
and it just wasn't good. And the cream rises to the top in this case, where you have those guys who are doing good are coming, then the rest of them are just closing up shop. It's a hard industry. It's a tough business for sure.
The base business model has been a race to the top. It's basically been, you have macro versus micro, and then you have all of micro trying to get as big and micro as they possibly can. So you have the Trogs of the world, you have the Bells of the world, you have the Founders of the world, trying to get as big as they possibly can. And everybody's like, there's going to be a crap beer bubble where there's going to be a regression, and then shit's going to go crazy and it's going to suck. Well, it's just going to splinter off, just like society, to where it used to be upper, lower, and middle class. Now there's all kinds of sects to everything. So you're going to have macros not going to go anywhere. Right. You're going to have all those upper tier. You're going to have the Bells, the Founders, the Trogs, those breweries of the world exist. The Sierra Nevadas exist in their level. You're going to have die off there. You're going to have the Smutty Noses of the world. You're going to have the Weyerbacher's of the world. All those breweries that are just didn't cut it, and they're going to file for bankruptcy. And then you're going to have the under echelon. So then there's going to be 3 tiers or 4 tiers instead of 2 tiers. And then what you're going to end up with is a lot of brew pubs on your corner, like you see in England, to where that's when I said selection. Your selection is going to change at the supermarket. It's not going to change in your hometown, because you're going to have 4 breweries that you can go to their tap room and drink at any time. Well, that didn't exist 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I wonder what's going to happen in the next, say, 10 years to like the Founders and Bells of the craft beer market. Because, and the reason I wonder that is because, they release special beers every once in a while. KBS from Founders, obviously every, March. And this year you can get it anywhere.
Seems like some of them overplayed their hand, flooded their market when they had sort of stuck to scarcity marketing before.
Right, but are they growing out of their pants? I mean, are they growing too fast?
No, I think they got greedy and they have a bunch of leftover shit that nobody's buying.
Yeah, but you also have Founders that doesn't. When KBS was a rarity and you had to seek it out, it got limited, if no distribution outside of the Michigan, Chicagoland area.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about they distribute in Europe and overseas and places like that. So their production obviously had to go up so they can distribute it to other places, because they're owned partially by Spanish think it's a Spain-based
Yeah, it's a Spanish
conglomerate. So they're distributing out in Europe. So you're obviously going to see wider distribution. They just can't distribute to Europe and wherever, Michigan. You know what I mean? They have to go outward. So they were going to up production. You know, that's that fight you fight. Is that your beer isn't worth shit because now you can find it. It's like, is it manufactured rarity? Is it actual rarity? Who knows? But I'll tell you what, KBS is still fucking delicious. That's all I know.
It is.
Yeah, but it is interesting for me, and maybe that was part of my snobbery, was the finding something that was hard to find, because as little as just, I would say, a few years ago, CBS, I had to work a little bit to get. I had to go.
Wasn't it just last year, or was it last year that we went to the Antioch Liquors and stood there at the bar? And
yeah,
was it last year?
Oh, well,
before?
that was right
for 18 CBS.
Yeah.
For 18. But now, I mean, I was in Grand Rapids just 6 weeks ago or whatever, and you go to Founders. I was at Founders, and there's just bottles and bottles and bottles and bottles of last year's. I mean, it's like 99 bottles of beer on the wall there. I mean, I could buy enough CBS to take a bath in.
That'd be a nice.
Well,
that's a bath.
and
I
can still go to a Piggly Wiggly, which is a grocery store here in Wisconsin,
I can't believe we're talking
and
about
I've got a
Yeah,
bottle
I
of
can't believe Piggly
2017
Wiggly came up on
CBS
this.
sitting on the shelf right over there, and I can go tomorrow and get another bottle of 2017.
But is that making a worse beer? I think that's a conversation trying to be had.
Well,
here.
that's what I'm suggesting.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
And maybe that's the wrong reason to define the quality of a beer. But
yeah, but are you saying the taste quality is different, or your perception of it now has changed?
Well, technically, I think there was a decline in quality 2018 compared to previous
KBS
years.
or CBS or both?
CBS, not KBS. I think KBS has stayed somewhat consistent. CBS, I think, has gotten worse. But I also recognize that I think part of my snobbery is like, suddenly, she's not hard to get anymore, and I just don't care as much.
You love when they play hard to get, don't you?
I guess I do. I didn't know it, but I do.
Yeah.
but that's the thing about CBS too. It's like it was released in 2008. It was released only in kegs sporadically in 2011, and then never released again up until, what was it, 2016?
16, yeah.
17. So you're talking about like it was such a random beer. And Founders, like I actually enjoy a lot of Founders beers, but
I do too.
their barrel program has actually some of my favorite beers in the history of mankind are Founders barrel aged beers, but they kind of bastardized their line, and that kind of goes more towards your argument than mine. So I'm kind of hurting my own argument, but
perfect.
Like they're like my favorite, if not one of my favorite beers of all time, is Sweet Repute from fucking Founders. It was a maple bourbon barrel aged wheat wine that I think was released last in 14 or 15. They're going to come out with it this year, and it's probably not going to taste anything like it was. And that is the distinct difference is like it was. There, you can actually, if you try hard enough, kids, if you stay in school and you try hard enough, then you can figure out the difference between a beer that your palate changed and the beer changed. And like, so I thought CBS was quite nice when it originally came out. This last time, like 15 or 16, when it originally relaunched, a lot of people pooped on it, but I think Founders is just getting too aggressive with the barrel program. That being said, I think a lot of their smaller beers have gotten really better. So it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a weird world to live in, because I actually don't think they give a shit about the barrel beers. I think it's boutique, like lost leaders for them.
Really? You may have a good point there.
I think that's what it's become for a lot of places.
Yeah.
I think it's just your calling card. It's part of a brand. It's part of a name. It's a yearly release, but that's not where they're making their money.
Right. They sell a shit ton of solid gold. They sell a shit ton of all day IPA.
Dude, they make like probably 70% of their bankroll from all day IPA.
All day IPA.
Yeah.
They bank on that.
Yep.
Like, it sucks if they don't sell CBS, but they're like, who gives a fuck? We're selling 15 racks at fucking all day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why the distributors aren't putting it out on the shelves as much.
See,
they're holding it back.
In PA, in Pennsylvania, which I live in Jersey, but in PA, I could find all those beers all the time. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think finding beers is a good thing. Now, it sucks when a tap house or whatever doesn't take care of their beers, but I think it's a good thing. If I want to have a KBS, I can go get it. Maybe it sucks for them, but I don't think it sucks for me.
No.
It's kind of like how Belgian beers are. Like Belgian beers are awesome because you can get them anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
all good points. Like I said, I didn't know I wanted her to play hard to get until she wasn't. That was
We all love it though. We all love it.
It's the hunt.
it's the excitement of
hunt.
finding it, of seeing it. Like, holy shit,
There it is.
I see you.
She's looking at me.
Well, speaking of the hunt, Lucky Charms beer.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you get it?
Which one?
Oh, there's the one that was out. What in the fall?
The one out of Virginia is the one you're talking about, I think.
Yeah.
That was a me living in New Jersey was a kind of a shitstorm because for the past year, was it year and a half before that beer was even announced? There's a brewery in Jersey doing a Lucky Charms beer. Almost
Oh, really?
Almost the exact same beer.
Oh,
Almost the exact same beer.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, there's a brewery in New Jersey called Bolero Snort. That's the name of the brewery. And what was the name of their Lucky Charms? But they do a Lucky Charms beer. You can look it up. I forget what it's called.
Like they do it on the regular?
It's called Magically Bolicious because everything they have is like a bull pun. And it's a good beer, but like all that stuff went down Magically Bolicious. And everybody was like freaking out about that thing. And we're like in Jersey, we're like, yeah, we've done that like already like 5 times already. Like, well, what's going on? It was like it was a rotational release. It wasn't like what happened once and they didn't have it. It was like, yeah, we did that like 5 times.
Well, it was funny because the people I work with know that I do a beer podcast, and they were asking me about the beer. You know,
Yeah.
and then I'm reaching out to people at work who are in Virginia, like, can you give me one? And nobody could get it. And it was just funny how that thing caught on. You know, when really in reality, it's like it's not that utterly unique.
2 things happened there. Either it was just random chance, or I'm almost guaranteeing somebody from the brewery or whatever called, you know what I mean, a local affiliate, news affiliate, and decided to do a story on it and whatnot. And it just caught wind, and just sent it to the AP wire, and it just kind of took off from there because it's like. Because it's you know, PR like that is good. You know what I mean? If you can get it going, your brewery's going to make a buck, but at the same time, you have to produce a great beer. And, you know, I heard it was like, you know, mediocre at best. I never had it, so
that's what I heard. It was mediocre at best. And then you get on that pub though, and you don't distribute outside of Virginia. I don't think they go outside of Virginia, did they? That's what I.
No, I think they were self-distributing. I don't think they like. Yeah, I don't think. I think they were just a small place.
Like, yeah, they're tiny.
Like,
yeah.
It's nice to have that kind of publicity, but twofold. If you can't produce beer enough to quench thirst of people who want it, you suffer there. But at the same time, too, if you don't make great beer in general, then it's like I don't want to call the brewery a joke, but the whole shtick is kind of like tongue in cheek a joke because it's like, okay, that was funny now, and now we get to dismiss that brewery as a joke. And I'm not saying they're a joke. I'm just saying the concept kind of leads them to be viewed as a shtick as opposed to a brewery.
Yeah, when your next beer is a Captain Crunch beer, nobody's going to pay attention.
I don't know. Maybe that was the whole plan. Maybe it was just a novelty. Let's get a story on this, and let's make sure we don't distribute it enough so people don't realize it actually sucks.
Yeah, right.
And like you,
don't
like you wouldn't read
horrible.
like you wouldn't click on the Captain Crunch story. You
I would, 'cause I
totally
love Captain
Yeah,
Crunch.
exactly.
That's my
Yeah,
jam.
it all depends. I would click on Golden Grams or Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah, see, here we go.
Here we go.
Why?
I'm
all right.
more of a honey bears kind of guy, but I mean,
Well,
whatever.
those are good too.
All right, Matt. We're starting a brewery. We only make breakfast cereal beers.
Wait, isn't that every brewery right now?
Yeah, right now. After the Lucky Charms one hit so big, everybody's like,
Is there?
Frosted Flakes beer.
there
No.
a-
Raisin Bran beer. No,
Cocoa
nobody wants that
Krispies?
either.
Fruit Loops?
That was probably
It was a Fruit Loops. Yeah.
a created fad by craft beer enthusiasts.
Then you're gonna have like that
Are we going conspiracy theory now?
that healthy brewery that does like the Raisin Bran.
I think it was the Russians. I think it was the Russians just trying to confuse
Oh,
us.
definitely.
Yeah.
the Russians.
Well, there probably was collusion. So
It was collusion.
DDH collusion.
Yes. Where's the potato infused beer?
Yeah.
Well,
Jake looks like you're hard in thought.
what is your
Always
what's your
looking like if
stance on
there was any
IBUs?
other-
What's your stance on IBUs? I love this question.
My stance on IBUs.
Does it?
I won't stand for it. No, I think IBUs is the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, I love this guy.
Oh,
Yes.
because
so funny.
because of this reason only. It's because one of my favorite beers in the history of mankind, because I have like 70 of them, is a beer called it's this beer.
Show the people.
It's called Black Albert. It's made by a brewery from the Netherlands called the Struce. They make a brewery called Panapot. They make a couple different beers, and they're absolutely fantastic. This is actually beer. It's a Russian Imperial Stout made for oddly enough, it's just a bar in Maine called Ebenezer's. This is a great beer. This is 120 IBUs, and it is not bitter at all in any form or fashion. So
Thank
IBUs
you.
are perceptional, and you know what I mean. It's like
Yes,
just
of course.
something higher in ABV or higher in IBUs doesn't mean it is bitter, nor does lower IBUs mean it is not going to be bitter. So that in and of itself, it's more of like a little touchy nerdery thing when you're brewing. If you're trying to, it's like BJCP rules. It doesn't really mean much in real life, but it can be. It could give you a little bit of information if you're using it right in the brew process.
Yeah, I think we hit
Totally
upon
agree.
this when that was back when we had Pliny, right?
Pliny.
Pliny,
Yep.
we had Pliny the Elder for the first time, and we're like, was
Yep.
it 90 IBUs?
It's 100. It's 100.
100 IBUs. And then we had something that was over that, and we're like, well, wait a second. You know, and then
Yeah.
Jake, the infamous line Jake has always said is IBUs don't matter, so we always give him shit for it and joke about it,
Well,
even though it's absolutely true.
My point is, and it's just kind of back to marketing, is that they what do consumers think? That when they see IBUs, they just assume that means bitterness, and that just doesn't mean that at all. You just don't know. And so,
Well, no, that's the thing. Like it's a marketing thing. IBUs.
yes,
Listen, two things. IBUs are heavily leaned on in beer and IPA. Like there's so many beers that breweries produce that aren't IPAs. They just call them IPAs so they kind of sell better.
Right.
You know what I mean? So a lot of people take like what's that called? What's the word I'm looking for? Where they take liberties on facts and figures and things like that in order to
fake
market.
news.
Yeah. Who did we ask about that? Was it Three Sheep? Yeah, it was
Yeah, it was Grant. I think.
Grant from Three
Grant
Sheep.
from
I asked
Three
him
Sheep,
about
yep.
like, there's really no rules. You could name something that's really a stout and call it an IPA if you want to, because there's no governing body that's going to be like, oh no, you can't name that a
Right.
stout. So
And
no
everybody's
federal
definition on a IBU rating is kind of arbitrary as well.
Well, and that's the thing. Kind of, I think to your point, Matt. Like, for a long time, my wife would see when she finally learned what IBUs were. She's like, "Oh, that's 90 IBUs. Oh, it's too bitter for me. I can't drink that." And it wasn't until I was giving her, okay, here's a 90, here's a 120, and then she'd drink them, and the 120 wasn't nearly as bitter as the 90, and she's like, "Oh wait, it doesn't matter." Like, exactly, it doesn't matter.
Well, there's I mean, like, not that it matters to most people, but there's like a brewery by me that there's two breweries actually. There's Carton Brewing and there's a brewery called Elementary Brewing, and they put like everything on there. They put IBUs, SRM, OG, and a bunch of different stuff on there. And if really you want to sit down with your fucking nerd calculator and figure it all out, it kind of makes sense, because if you're talking about gravity, original gravity, final gravity, and fucking all that shit combined, then you could kind of calculate where it's going to come out, and that's kind of where 120 comes from, because it's like 120 isn't bitter because it's like literally like eating a block of fucking sugar
Right.
with a bunch of bitter thrown at it. So it's like, it kind of makes sense in that aspect. But I think a lot of people back in the day, like when you drink like OG, I hesitate to say OG because it's not that long ago, but like older school, beers, it was like very core four Ron Heinz Gebouty stuff. So IBU, it's a causation correlation thing. It used to be, it is bitter and it has a base recipe, therefore it'll end up bitter, whereas this doesn't have a lot of bitter. It had a bunch of sweet in it, it will end up sweet. It was like, it didn't necessarily was bitter because of the IBUs. Just so happened it was bitter because the IBUs are high because of the base and how the beers are made back in the day. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I think so.
Apparently not.
Nah,
Cheers.
I'm gonna have to listen to that again later. I'm just being honest.
No, it's basically beers were made simply back in the day.
Yeah.
We're talking the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. And like when there's a ton of IBUs involved, the beer tend to be very simple, so the bittering shine through. Therefore, ended up bittering. Do you know what I mean? So whereas low IBU beers ended up being sweeter, it had nothing to do with having high or low IBUs. It so happened that the beer wasn't as impactful on other aspects of the beer. So it was like a causation correlation thing. Anyway.
So it
Well,
used to matter more
there's a
because
lot of-
beers
lot
are
of-
less
lot of big-
complex?
A lot of Big Bang Theory things being titles being thrown around there.
Great
But
show. Great show.
I
Are we
love that show.
plugging Big...
We're not. Whatever. 3 episodes
guys
left
are
in the
idiots.
series.
I
anyway.
think what you said makes sense because I really feel like there's more of a scientific approach to craft beer brewing now than and maybe it was present back in the 70s, 80s. I don't know, but I think it's definitely more prevalent now in the craft beer industry where we see craft breweries throwing out these numbers based on a scientific explanation of how they brewed their beers.
No, I mean it makes sense. Like the beer that's open right now is from a local brewery by me called Equilibrium.
Oh yeah.
They're water chemists. That's what their job was before they opened a brewery.
Who
So
had them?
I think Kyle sent me some of those.
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
And they're fucking engineering water nerds. Do you know what I mean? That's like you sit down with them and talk about stuff. They love water and water pH and water chemistry. It's like kind of how they outside of beer, and it comes through in their beer. So when they talk about beer, they actually, if you want to have it, they're kind of that person where if you want to have a conversation about stuff, they'll talk to you just like we're talking now. But if you want to get super nerdy, they'll start talking about shit that I don't even fucking understand. You know what I mean? They get crazy. The same way with those elementary people I was talking about. There's a lot of people I know that were in like, previous jobs that are science based, engineers and chemists and all those kind of things. So I think there is a lot more science to it. Now, on the other side of things, when people throw out, I think almost all like ABVs and all that shit are bullshit. Like I think people are just kind of like, yeah, it's kind of around there, whatever. Like like one of the worst things you'd ever do to a brewery is if you want to shut down craft brewing, pass the legislation where you have to have like nutritional value. You have to have calories. You have to have all that stuff in there because breweries couldn't afford to have all that stuff tested in order to actually put those things on the labels of all their beers.
Well, that's what Big Beer has been trying to push.
Yeah.
The whole thing with the whole corn syrup thing to begin with is that Big Beer
It's
together
a
had
slow play.
agreed to start showing that information on their packaging.
Yep.
And then
I don't think that was aimed at craft beer though, to be honest with you.
No, but Big Beer is trying to. I think Big Beer is going to try to push for that because they know what you're saying.
I think it's a slow play.
Yeah,
I
could be.
they would never say it, but I
A what play?
like a long play. Like I think that
He said slow play.
Slow.
It's
long.
Jake.
The long con is what he's looking for.
That would be
Long
a good way
con,
to put it.
Jake is slow play.
Like slow, like poker. Like you're gonna keep. Oh, I got.
We get it. You don't
I'm
have
gonna
to-
stay
you have
in,
to
but I'm not
explain
gonna
it.
raise you. Like you're slow playing somebody. Like I think that was their end game, but they just weren't gonna go about it. But I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot,
They did shoot him in the foot.
especially when they got like the corn farmers
corn industry of America.
get pissed off at them.
You gotta love that. That was a good.
Well, yeah, in the whole our beer is made by wind with the wind farm thing.
Love
I mean,
Oh,
It's the hard way.
it's made by Clydesdale farts.
turn the fans.
Turn on the fans. Turn on the.
they're reaching. They're really reaching.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I view macro beer as like a zero threat to micro beer at the moment. I think they're pretty safe for the next decade or so.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's so many good beers being made by the craft beer side of it. I mean, I guess there's a few being made by Big Beer as well, but I think they're pretty safe too. I think it'll be interesting to see though how everything shuffles out over the next 10 years, and who's in the craft beer side, who's still here and who's not.
I mean, yeah, that's the question. We'll see what's what. But there's honestly, like, the grand scheme of things, and it kind of goes back to the question about like getting into beer. There's so much good beer right now. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Like, even if you strip down like the hazies and fruited lactose Berliner Weiss fucking super pastry stouts craziness, like, there's a lot of people making really good fucking beer. Like, it's crazy.
There's more good beer than I can drink right now.
Well, and the thing is,
it's insane.
Yeah.
Also because it's so regional, right? He's talking about these breweries and beers that I've never heard of.
But I want to drink them.
But I want to drink them, right? And so that's the whole thing. Is it's so regional. And just whenever we travel somewhere, my wife is always looking at breweries. Like, where can we go over there that we've never been to? Just because that's really the fun thing and interesting thing for us is to find those breweries that we don't get to go to all the time and see what they're doing over there. So,
Matt, how often do you get a box of beer from a fan or a beer trade or whatever you got going on? You got like shipments coming in daily?
No.
You should see his garage. It's just all beer.
Well, I saw a lot of boxes over there.
He's got
the bud truck pulling up.
I do all right.
I do okay.
Don't cry for me.
Like, I get beer from breweries, and then I get beer from viewers, and I would say, last year I got 50. No. Ended up being 62 boxes of beer from viewers. So I got a box a week from a viewer. And most of those usually contain between like 4 to 8 beers. And then I usually get one box a week from a brewery.
Are you able to keep up and review your fans' beer? Does it get daunting to feel like you want to give everybody?
Yeah, no, it does. And I tell them, like, people, like, it's weird, and I feel bad. I feel weird about it because I don't ask anybody for beer. You know what I mean? Like, I did actually, like, a long time ago. Like, I actually wrote a couple of breweries, being like, "Hey, I can review your beer," but I was like forever ago. But I don't ask anybody for anything. Like, anything that anybody ever sends me, they email me and stuff like that. And the only thing I'll ever actually allude to mentioning is mystery beers, because I can't do mystery beers by myself. Like, I have to have somebody send me mystery beers, so there's no way I could do them. So I'm like, if you're ever interested in sending me beer, you can send me a mystery beer, but that's the only time I'll ever go into that. But like, like, people write me, and sometimes they'll like be like, "Hey man, I'd like to trade," and I'll be like, I'm not gonna trade you. I'm like, I'm not gonna trade anything. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, it is what it is. And I won't be like, "Hey, if you want to send me stuff, that's great," but I'm not going to send shit back. I'm like, I don't trade. I'm like, I can't. Because it's weird, because, like, if one person sends me a box of 5 beers, I have to send him 5 beers. But then, like, if I had to send one box of beer out a week, I'd fucking go poor, man. I can't. No, seriously. Right. So I have to be like, I just can't send anything out. And a lot of people don't even ask. They don't know. They're just like, it's cool. I'm gonna send you out stuff. It is what it is. You know what I mean? So.
Do you ever just have to give stuff away to your friends locally?
Oh yeah, like half the time when I'm doing a beer review, there's like people here. I just go in my room and I drink half. Like when I do. Like right now, I am drinking this. I'm drinking, like, I have this beer, and this beer. It's all stuff I reviewed right before I came on camera. That way I'm like, okay, I have beer to drink. So that way I'm like, I'm drinking these. But more times than not, I'll have like friends out there, and I'll be like, I'll review and I'll drink like a third of it. And while I'm switching to the next video, I'll just be like, here's the can. Yeah. Or honestly, I'll fucking dump beer down the drain.
That's what I was going to ask next. How often do you have to drain?
Now we're getting the good
that's a question.
Now we're getting the real behind the scenes.
No, like, I'm not saying it happens all the fucking time. Like, if I like it, I'm fucking drinking it. But there's more times than not. I'm like, I'm like, I'm good. I'm like, I'm not doing any more of that shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's like. It's a math. It's like an equation between, like, do you want to get drunk, or do you want to drink good beer? You know what I mean? And I'm like, I only have so many beers like I can drink. So if it sucks, I'm not going to waste my time on it.
All right, I can respect that. It's good. I was.
But yeah, I get a shit ton of beer, and it's fucking awesome. So
Is there like do you have like a walk-in cooler somewhere where you're keeping all this shit?
No, because I drink it all. No, I have like a beverage cooler, like one of those. It'll hold like a decent amount of beer. and then anything that's like non like hop driven or anything that can be cellared or whatever, I usually keep in like a certain area that's not, because I like my my like darker beers or like barley wines or aged beers to be like more like 60 degrees instead of like 48 degrees or something like that. So I won't put those in the fridge and stuff like that. But I actually, a lot of people ask me for cellar video. I don't have a cellar video. Like I don't have a ton of beer. I drink all my beer. I give it away. Like I have people come over and I just like, here, let's drink. Like I'll invite 5 people over and be like, don't bring any beer, just drink it. Like I don't want it here.
Oh, I like this guy.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm thinking,
we'll be there. How long does it take to drive to the PA?
Yeah, I think a road trip to New Jersey might be in order here.
I am holding a beer tuber palooza.
Oh,
so
do tell.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to come if you want. In July 20th. Because I live in a farm. And I have the space. I actually, because no one's ever, as far as I know, no one's really done it before. So I decided, I wrote a bunch of the beer reviewers. So you guys do the podcast. I didn't rate you guys because it was more like beer reviews, and I invited a select few, not even a select few. I actually wrote Kyle from No Hype Beer Reviews. I wrote the Nerd Sense guys, and I wrote like 3 or 4 other guys that I feel comfortable with because we're good friends. We talk all the time. They were into the concept. They agreed to come. So then I invited pretty much the whole as a beer tubing community to come if they want to come and hang out and just shoot beer reviews, chug beers, and do all that stuff and stare at my cows. So it's going to be pretty fun.
That sounds awesome.
That does sound amazing. I looked at my calendar and I got to do a trade show.
Chad's like, oh shit.
Chad, just trying to be honest. I mean, come on, what a dick.
I know. I got to figure out a way to get out of this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be a fun road trip.
Where's the
for
trade
us.
show?
We could probably drive that in a day.
An hour away.
I can
from
drive
me.
anywhere in a day. I'm good.
Yeah, maybe.
Pedal to the metal.
You can get anywhere in a
Are
day.
people just like
I'm gonna put that
camping
on my-
there?
I'm gonna put
What's
that
the
on my
plan, Matt?
gravestone when I
Yeah,
die.
exactly right.
Matt Atkins died 2085 because I'm gonna live to be like 150.
Obviously.
It's gonna be like you can get anywhere in a day.
Yep, so I can drive anywhere in a day.
Ellipsis.
So, what is your thoughts on cannabis and beer? We've had a few breweries out on the West Coast, some with THC, some without, some using the cannabis as like a hop alternative.
I have a very strong opinion about this.
Ooh, I'm glad I asked then.
So, not really that strong, but just an opinion nonetheless. About 2 years ago, you can search my reviews. I did one. I had somebody that made a home brew with actual like THC, like legitimate, like fuck you up, like Percocet shit in it, and it was fun. And I actually did the review proper. Like I actually drank half the beer, and then stopped the camera, and then drank half the beer and watched the movie, and then came back and filmed again. Like
Fell
about
asleep,
an hour and
had
a half
Taco
later.
Bell,
And
went
it
to
felt,
White
and it was
Castle.
cool, and I dug it, and it was a really good beer too. But I'm the opposite of a lot of people in that I actually like when I go to like when people are ensconcing me in all kinds of boxes of free beer. When I go to the store and actually purchase beer with my hard-earned YouTube cash.
Which you don't have to do that often because you get so much.
That doesn't exist, by the
Right.
way.
Yeah.
I don't monetize anything. But the
Well, says the big InBev shill over here. Sure.
yeah. But when I buy beer, I almost exclusively never buy anything over 6%. In a perfect world, everything's below 5%. The sole reason is if I'm gonna actually sit down and drink beer, like sometimes I just want to like play video games, drink beer. I want to drink a couple of beers. Like I just don't want to get shitty. And if you add fucking weed on top of that, I'm fucking wrecked. You know what I mean? Like I'm useless. You know what I mean? So I dig it. I think it's cool. I like the concept, and I'd probably be into it. But if you gave me a double IPA, 9% double hazy IPA with fucking crazy fucking whatever THC crystal, whatever in it, I'm like fucking I'm not gonna work for 5 days. I'm retarded. So I dig the concept, but no.
You dig the concept, you just won't drink it.
No, like I'll take a sippy poo, like
Yeah.
a little plug off it.
Yeah, I get it.
Take a little rip.
Little rip.
A little snort off there, you know.
Puff, puff, pass. Don't
Drink,
miss the
pass.
Drink, curl. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I'm curious to see what the future holds there.
I think we all are.
Matt, what do you ever take a break from beer and do you drink hard liquor? You partake in any whiskey or gin or vodka or got any
do I ever, well, let's
vices there?
Well, do I ever take a break from beer? Yes. Not that often, but I do. A lot of what I do is based. My wife thinks that outside of the farm thing, she makes actual fiber yarn and stuff like for people. That's her job and how she makes money. So like typically if we go on a day trip for the weekend or go out and do things, it's typically like, okay, is there a fucking sheep farm and is there a brewery? That's kind of how shit rolls. But if I'm gonna drink anything besides beer, my wife has turned me so much into a gin lover, it's not even funny. And to the point where it's kind of dangerous. Because I think gin is delicious in the same way like a 7-Up is delicious, and it's kind of scary. But at the same time, if it's like if I'm getting serious, I'm drinking single malt scotch, and shit is gonna get fucking crazy.
Interesting. Single malt scotch. Okay.
Yeah, I had to make this podcast 9 times longer.
That's fine.
I started drinking scotch. But my mom was from Scotland. That's the only thing she ever drank was scotch. She passed away. I had this weird homage where I started drinking scotch. I was just like, yeah, I'm drinking scotch. She passed away. I'm gonna drink scotch. So I started drinking scotch, and my buddy who I was in the beer with, I was like, man, you should start drinking scotch with me. Because who doesn't want to do that? And he's like, oh, this tastes like melted Band-Aids. It sucks. And
wait, did he say melted Band-Aids? Was that the description?
Yeah, because that's what scotch tastes like if you never had it before. Because believe me, that's actually what it tastes like. It's horrible.
Interesting.
We're talking like Cutty Sark and shit. But anyway, and so I tried to get him into scotch, shitty scotch, and he wasn't into it. So then we ended up separating from each other for almost 10 years.
Over the scotch.
Over the Band-Aid.
No, physically, not just scotch.
Okay.
And during that time, I actually grew an appreciation for decent scotch. Like I was like, getting the single malt scotches, liking specific stuff. I don't like that Islay Scotch Band-Aid shit. I'm a Speyside guy all the way. But he got into scotch like a fucking maniac. And he lived with this woman, and she was wealthy, so he had all this crazy expensive scotch. So he ended up coming back. We ended up hooking up, and I went through like a gauntlet of this crazy, awesome scotch that I will never have in my life because I will never spend that money on my scotch. I will never ever spend that kind of money on scotch.
But it changed you.
Yeah. But it changed me. It totally. Oh, they're all there. Half the bottles, they're all up there. And he would come over to my house and be like, just a whole bottle of a fucking 7-year-old bottle of scotch, and be like, we're drinking this whole bottle tonight. I'm like, sure, guy. And
love you, man. Yeah, I love you.
That was a cool time. But yeah. Nah, I'll drink a little bit of scotch, a little bit of gin. But
are you guys on another 10-year break or?
Yeah, I think we are. We are like a dumb friend fighting bullshit. We'll be on 10-year break and then hook up again and drink more scotch. It's we honestly are. It's no joke. I'm not fucking no joke.
You should call him.
Shit gets real when you start
You
drinking.
should. You can see him in some of my older videos. His name's Wade. If you type in Sam Adams Triple Bach, and in my YouTube channel, you'll see him, and he's just. Yeah, he's crazy.
That's awesome.
That's hilarious.
Too funny.
What about you guys? What do you guys if you drink anything outside of beer, or do you?
Oh yeah.
Geez, yeah.
We just had a guy from Chicago Distilling on and talked to him about
a craft distillery
in Chicago. It was super interesting. It was the first time we ever interviewed anybody outside of the beer industry, and it was super interesting. But I went out. We had some of their gin.
Well, I brought the gin for the show.
You brought the gin for the show. That was one of the better gins I've had in a long time.
Yep.
And then their rye whiskey. I've been drinking that this week.
We usually see gin more often because it's a quicker turnaround liquor.
Right, exactly. You
don't turn around like bourbon and rye because it's spicier, so you can get away with it earlier. But yeah, we have a bunch of distilleries around here. I haven't really talked to those guys. You said he was cool. Like, what was the coolest podcast interview? Like, who was your favorite one?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I mean, besides you, Matt? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, besides me.
Of course. I mean,
I think it's pretty tough because one of our favorite breweries up here is Three Sheeps out of Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And when we first started kick around the idea of actually interviewing somebody, we wanted to interview the owner of that brewery because we've been there a couple times and we like pretty much all their beers and stuff. So yeah, this weekend, yeah, we'll be there. But we got to interview him.
Yeah, Grant was great. He was awesome.
And Josh Noel,
who
wrote the book,
was fantastic.
Yeah. He was really, really interesting. I don't know if favorite one. I don't know. That's a tough one.
I shouldn't say favorite. Some of the more interesting ones.
The Chicago Distilling was really super interesting. Really, to me,
I would say Jay from Chicago Distilling and Grant from Three Sheeps would be my two.
Yeah.
Wait, how did you guys start this? Like were you guys all boys back in the day? Like, how'd you end up doing
So
this?
Chad and I went to college together. I dropped out of college. He kept going. Jake lives across the street from me. And that's so Chad and I
didn't like the guy on the couch that just didn't leave.
That's pretty much, yeah.
I know that guy.
Chad and I don't know, we kind of reconnected and we started talking about beer. And we're both like, we should do a podcast. And so we started doing a podcast where all we would do is review a beer every show. That's all we would really do. And then this guy kept coming over to the show.
They had really good beer they were reviewing.
He just kept showing up.
Just kept hanging
Well,
out.
and Jake, the first time I met Jake was at Adam's 20th wedding anniversary.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
remember that. We
had a
drunk
party
as
bus that
fuck.
night. We
had a party bus, but Jake
Shitty.
was humping the Christmas tree, and I thought, I like this guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like, is it like fire, duck, and party bus? Like, those are like terms that are like fire, party bus. Like, they elicit the same response in the human condition. You know what I mean? Like, fire, and they're like, oh shit. Be like, party bus. They're like, oh shit.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
We got in
It's
that
true.
night. That was a
Yeah.
good time.
My wife, we had our 20th anniversary and our wedding, we didn't have any dancing, any really reception at all because we got married really young. But so we decided our 20th,
We made up for it.
we were gonna make up for that shit. So
We got it.
we had that party bus and everybody came. The party bus dropped everybody off back at our house.
and the party kept going.
Party kept going. We got a table got broken. A tree almost fell down.
I keep waiting for like a baby evergreen to show up at my
Almost
house and be like,
almost
"Dad,
Matt,
somebody
Matt,
almost fell down.
Yeah, almost.
I was in the wedding party for their wedding.
Yeah.
And the 20th wedding anniversary party was better than their wedding. Their wedding night.
Absolutely.
That party
I would
wasn't.
hope so.
yeah."
They're building up to you. You're just getting better with age.
Yeah,
man.
there
It's
you
like fine vintage of
Like a
barley.
fine wine.
Yeah, bad.
It was a good time.
It was. Yeah, but that's how we. And then we were doing the beer reviews, and then we decided we wanted to talk to more people, and so we kind of moved away from doing the reviews. Although Chad does a Friday morning beer review every Friday morning, little plug, and he does like breakfast themed beers, and
When did you start doing the interviews? Just out of curiosity.
this year,
This year,
January.
we focused on it.
yeah, January. Is when
This
we,
year?
yeah, when we started doing
Okay.
it.
The shift.
Was Josh our first one?
Yes.
Yeah, Josh Noel was our first one.
Yep, he was.
I was
Do you
surprised.
like it?
I was surprised he said yes. I was like, I hit him up on Twitter. He's like, yeah, I'll do it. I was like, oh shit, okay, cool.
Yeah, we're like, oh shit, this is happening.
We like doing these interviews better than the regular beer review podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's so much more fun talking to people, meeting people like you, and getting to hear like how they got into this shit, what they think about
Dude.
stupid shit.
Like my dude, I love doing the beer reviews. They're fun. They're like snippets and shit like that. But like when I love doing the podcast better. Like, it's fun. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it just sit down and just chill and just like do like this. Like it's like, like I'm trying to set up like I'm doing a podcast with there's a distributor in the United States called Shelton Brothers. They like they import like a lot of the beer from like Europe and stuff like that. And I'm setting up like a thing with those guys, and the one guy I talked to him before when I had the radio show, but he keeps asking for like format, and I'm like, there's a format, but we're just gonna chug some beers and talk, man. Like I'm like, I'll have an outline, but let's just we chug a beer and have a
which we had an
conversation.
outline tonight, but
Well,
Yeah.
we have been asked by guests before, like for an outline of the show.
They do.
I think Chad, we won't say the name, but they had asked for an outline. He emailed me. He's like, "Do we have an outline?" I'm like, "No, we drink beer and we talk. That's what we do. That's that's the outline.
I mean, we have show notes.
We have show notes where like questions will come up with, but they wanted to know like the timing of it, like what we would be talking about. It's like,
But see, that's why I have fun. Like Matt, like we come into this. We have questions we want to ask you, but I don't know where the show's going to take us.
That's the thing.
And when
There's been
I hear
many
you
shows
talking about going to Canada in =98 and what the beer scene was like before there was a craft beer scene, like that's fascinating shit that I didn't even plan us exploring tonight.
Well, our inspiration here is Joe Rogan. He gets people on and just talks and shoots the shit for 2-3 hours,
basically.
And that's kind of where we're at. Just trying to concentrate on the beer and spirits world
and the people that are in it.
Yeah,
Joe Gorelli fucked the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the more
News radio, come on, who's news radio, baby?
The more we can talk to people,
That's old school.
we've learned so much shit. I mean, really, this distilling one was the most interesting because that's the world we didn't know a lot about. Right?
It felt like the most different person.
We've read the most about the beer world.
Content.
We've been involved. We've been to many breweries and stuff. But then when he came on and just talking, he was so knowledgeable. Like talking to him was like, that's what made it cool. Like, oh shit, there's a lot I didn't know about. So.
And he even had his license on the side if he wanted to start a craft brewery. Like
he has a craft brewery license if he wanted to do it.
Yeah, it's there. I'm thinking about it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I could brew some beer out of my garage for you if you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, just our little corner of the internet.
Oh man, I gotta say this talk with you has been fantastic, man. It's been a lot of fun. You're a ball of energy. You call yourself a curmudgeon and a little bit of a hermit, but man, I thoroughly enjoyed this.
I text the guys. I didn't go to sleep till like 2:30 in the morning because my wife was traveling and her dog is annoying. He was annoying me last night, trying to get in bed. I have 3 Great Danes, and there's one that loves my wife. And when she leaves, he's a nervous wreck. So he just annoys the fuck out of me. So I would text these guys like, "You guys have to carry the show. I have zero energy, but you brought my energy up." So
yeah, this was fun.
Great time. I had a blast. I'm always down for chugging beers and talking about shit.
Yeah, chugging beers and talking about beer and other shit.
I mean,
that's
you got to come back on here before too long because I think there's a lot of stuff we didn't quite get to tonight. So
yeah, fuck yeah, dude. I'm all good, man.
So he's going to be like another No Hype Beer Reviews that makes repeat appearances, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You should honestly have both me and Kyle on the whole time so I could just berate Kyle into submission the whole time. I just want to make Kyle, honestly, I just want to make Kyle cry. But no, in all seriousness,
Challenge
like Kyle,
accepted.
like we've hung out in person. Like I know Kyle, like he's one of my favorite people in the YouTubes. So
we had him on last week for the second time.
Yeah, he's been on twice. Yeah.
It was so funny.
He's such a good dude, man. He's just like,
he's
like
great.
really like
Nice
to the
guy.
point where like I kind of like hope he's not a serial killer. He's that nice.
You could tell he was tired and pushing through at the end of that episode. If you watch it, it's like
Well, chopping up those bodies takes a lot of effort.
It does. Yeah, it takes a lot of energy out of you.
But you know what I found is a lot of the people they're a lot nicer than us. Like who's the
you're an
guy
asshole.
that we talked to? He was so nice from Minnesota.
Beer by the numbers.
Yeah, Beer by the
Oh,
Numbers.
Beer
That
by the
guy's
Numbers.
super
Ryan.
nice too.
Oh, that dude. What's his name?
Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like such a he's nice, like but nice in like an analytical way. Like he's just
Yeah.
Very, very analytical.
yeah, like because I think he does like that's what he does, like sociology or some shit like that. Like he's like, yeah, he's a super nice guy.
Yeah, he was I totally forgot about him. He was a fun interview too.
Yeah, we need
He
to
had so much information. Like,
way nicer than you guys.
shit. Oh, you're an asshole. So what do you know?
I know.
So it's a big
Yeah. He's in like Russia or Czechoslovakia or something right now.
What?
He's drinking. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you follow him on Instagram.
What, are you
He's
texting him or something on the side? What's going on here?
Sexting them.
I know,
he's
right?
drinking beers all over the world, man.
Chad's not sending him pictures of his bottles. You know what I'm saying?
Bottle caps.
Bottle caps. Well, Matt, where can everybody find you on the old inner tubes?
You can find me on the inner tubes. Let's see, Massa Beers. Just type that shit in the internets. You'll see me doing the beer reviews and the Instagrams and all that stuff. If you want to see me doing the podcasting, and the podcasting is fun. We've interviewed everybody from John Kimmich to fucking Dean from Treehouse to Jim Koch to fucking like everybody in the beer world. You can find that at Beer Massif, MASSIF, Beer Massif, if you're French. And if you want to reach out to us and email, you can reach us out at massivebeers@gmail.com.
Sweet, man. All right, are we done?
Yeah.
Are we done? Everybody good?
Yeah, but we have to talk about what mystery beers we're sending.
Oh boy.
Mystery beers. Mystery beers.
boy.
Mystery beers is the best kind of beers, man.
Oh boy.
I don't think I could do a mystery beer, Matt, because I'm such a dick that somebody
That's
would send me
true.
just some piss or something.
No, because there's one. This is how you do mystery beers. It's the easiest way ever.
Sniff.
And it's not mine. I've stole this, but I'll own it as my own. Always confident, often wrong. So if you actually say shit with conviction, people will believe you. So that's the kind of the trick. Be like, this is this and that. And when you're wrong, be like, that's crazy. I didn't get that. And be like, he's right. He's right. He didn't get that. And be like, no shit, Sherlock. Because no, mystery beers are fun. It's honestly one of the things I actually. And the funny thing is, I do it for fun, and I do it because I like to test myself. But I also implore people out there: try to drink beer you don't know what the fuck it is, because there's so much pretension with beer from labels and people trying to tell you what it is. To strip all that out and drink something for what it is one of the most purest things you can possibly do.
Amen.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us and drinking beers.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Stick around for a second afterward.
Will do.
We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we're always gonna hang out.